Through our PIs right now, we do have some evidence that Kim Porter may have been poisoned and murdered.
The conversation regarding Kim Porter continues. More discussion over her death and the accusation that there wasn't a proper investigation. We're going to catch you up to speed on this aspect of the Sean Combs story and bring back on forensic death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan.
The opening wastes no time and delivers a claim that immediately unsettles the room, that Kim Porter's death may not have been as simple as it was officially ruled. This moment matters because it reframes everything that follows, forcing viewers to reconsider what they thought was closed. It quietly connects her story to a much larger collapse unfolding in real time around power, influence, and accountability. The tone is calm, measured, and deliberate, but the implication is explosive. There is no shouting, no accusation, just doubt placed carefully on the table. Power, secrecy, and fear surface all at once without being named directly. This intro destabilizes confidence rather than attacking conclusions. It plants a seed that something doesn't sit right. And once that door opens, there's no closing it. Alright, guys, now the video grounds us in the official version of events.
Since we've talked about Kim Porter, right, a key figure in the Sean Combs saga, and with the arrest and indictment of rapper, producer, media mogul Sean Diddy Combs on federal racketeering and sex trafficking charges, there is this renewed interest in all aspects of his life, all the people in his life. And that includes, of course, Kim Porter, Combs' ex-girlfriend, who tragically died in her Los Angeles home back in November of 2018. Officers reportedly found the 47-year-old unresponsive. She was pronounced dead. Now, initially, an autopsy was performed on Porter the next day, and according to the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Office, the cause of death was deferred pending additional tests. But then you fast forward to January 2019, and the office then concludes that she died of lobar pneumonia. So the manner of death was listed as natural as opposed to something like homicide, and she'd apparently gone into cardiac arrest. Now, it was reported that she had been battling flu-like symptoms in the days leading up to her death, that there were water bottles, sports drinks, Pedialyte. They were found in her bedroom. Days after her death, Sean Combs commented publicly about Porter's death, writing on Instagram, "For the last 3 days, I've been trying to wake up out of this nightmare, but I haven't. I don't know what I'm going to do without you, baby. I miss you so much. Today I'm going to pay tribute to you. I'm going to try and find the words to explain our unexplainable relationship. We were more than best friends. We were more than soulmates. We were some other S. And I miss you so much. Super black love." Combs would reportedly tell Essence magazine the following year, "One night I was checking on her and she was like, 'Puffy, take care of my babies.' She actually said that to me before she died." Now, he's talked about Porter a lot over the years. For example, in 2023, Combs claimed that Porter was the inspiration behind his Love album, Off the Grid. He even dedicated a song to her. Now, despite all of this, there have been rumors. There have been unsubstantiated rumors about Kim Porter's death, about what actually happened. And remember, this is a couple that first started dating in the 90s. They had an on-again, off-again relationship. They went through a custody battle over Christian, the son that they had together. They reconcile. They have twin daughters together, Delilah Starr, Jesse James. Combs reportedly cheated on Porter, though. They broke up in 2007, but by all accounts, Porter and Combs seemed to remain close, to be on good terms as parents until her death. And by the way, a little side note, Porter was actually mentioned relatively recently in one of the sexual assault lawsuits that was filed against Sean Combs. This concerned April Lampros, and she claimed that one night in 1996, Combs had forced her and Porter to take ecstasy and have sex with each other as Combs watched and touched himself. And she said afterwards that Combs even invited her to Porter's birthday party. Now, Lampros would also allege that Porter got angry and was resentful of her and helped get her fired from the bar where Lampros was working. So it was really interesting to hear that. But like I said, there have been theories popping up, particularly on Reddit, about Porter's real cause of death, about whether or not she was killed. And one of those people who seems to believe that there is more to the story is Albie Shore. This is Porter's ex. His real name is Albert Joseph Brown. They shared a son together named Quincy. Well, after Combs' arrest on federal sex crimes charges, Brown posted on Instagram, "In a nutshell, Kimberly was allegedly taken from us because she was set on course to accomplish what Miss..."
Here, the narrative becomes clinical and procedural, relying on dates, medical language, and formal conclusions. The ruling of lobar pneumonia is presented as orderly, final, and medically justified. Everything sounds neat on paper. But as the details stack up, something subtle begins to feel off. The cause of death was deferred before being finalized. The conclusion came later, quietly, without much public discussion. The speed and simplicity of closure raise quiet questions without anyone saying them out loud. This segment is crucial because it shows how official answers don't always remove doubt, sometimes they create it. It demonstrates how facts can be accurate yet emotionally incomplete. This is the foundation the rest of the story presses against. Alright, guys, this is where the story takes a darker turn.
Cassie Ventura did by igniting the bonfire, which brings us here today. Ventura, of course, is Combs' ex-girlfriend who filed that initial sexual assault, sex trafficking lawsuit against Sean Combs last year. It spiraled into multiple other lawsuits and arguably spiraled into these charges that he's now facing today. And Brown wrote, "I'm writing this post to formally request an investigation into an entire group of individuals who worked at or around the residence of Miss Kimberly Porter." And he called her death a tragic murder. Now, interestingly, there are reports that Albie Shore has even taken more security measures after asking for an investigation. In fact, he was presented an award at the American Liver Foundation's National Legacy Gala in New York. And in his speech, he says, "We even have Homeland Security in the building. Detective Jackson, good to see you." Not entirely sure what he's talking about, what he's referencing, but considering it was Homeland Security that raided Sean Combs' properties in LA and Miami and collected all that evidence that federal prosecutors are now using in their criminal case against him, interesting comment to make. Now, Gene Deal, this is Combs' former bodyguard, spoke on the Art of Deal podcast about this, and he said, "You got to realize, man, Kim's death wasn't even investigated." He went on to say, "How is it that there was no electronic products or gadgets around Kim? Be her laptop missing, her cell phone's missing, everything is missing, that she could get in touch with her little girls if they're not at home, or her friends or family. All that's missing. How is it that? All that's missing. How is it that?" The detectives didn't even examine Porter's body where she passed away. And Deal emphasized, if that is true, that case needs to be reopened. And also in regards to the idea that she got a massage right before her death, he also said, who gives somebody a massage when they get pneumonia? Deal also apparently took issue with the alleged timing of buying her gold casket. He said, how you order a gold casket 2 months before somebody dies. And he even addressed Albie Shore beefing up his security. Al ain't no fool. He's smart by getting extra security. Now, with all of this as a backdrop, the last time we talked about Kim Porter on Sidebar is when a book was published on Amazon. It was entitled Kim's Lost Words, A Journey for Justice from the Other Side. It is allegedly a memoir from Kim Porter herself detailing her relationship with Sean Combs, but it reportedly contains typos, shocking claims, some are saying even inaccurate statements. In fact, Quincy Brown, Christian, Jesse Delilah Combs, they wrote in a joint statement on Instagram, "We have seen so many hurtful and false rumors circulating about our parents, Kim Porter and Sean Combs' relationship, as well as about our mom's tragic passing, that we feel the need to speak out. Claims that our mom wrote a book are simply untrue. She did not. And anyone claiming to have a manuscript is misrepresenting themselves." And by the way, even Combs authorized his attorney Erica Wolf to release a statement on his behalf regarding the new book, stating, "The Kim Porter memoir is fake. It is also offensive, a shameless attempt to profit from tragedy. Chris Todd has no respect for Miss Porter or her family, who deserve better. Unlike the fabrications in his sickening memoir, it is an established fact that Miss Porter died of natural causes. May she rest in peace." And Albie Shore reportedly sent a cease and desist letter to Amazon as well. And Chris Todd, by the way, he's the author. And when we say memoir, we have to be clear here. There's no information verifying that Porter actually authored these writings or authorized a book to be written by her or anybody else at any point. And even the author really couldn't confirm whether these are actually Porter's words or not, but he seems to believe it's true. claiming that Porter created the information herself on a flash drive, which Todd says she gave to her friends prior to her death. Again, her family, loved ones deny.
Old allegations resurface, pulling Kim Porter into disturbing claims involving control, coercion, and exploitation. These are not introduced as proven facts, but they dramatically shift the emotional landscape. Suddenly, this is no longer just a medical discussion, it's about power dynamics hidden behind fame. Viewers are forced to reconsider what may have been normalized or ignored at the time. The discomfort here is intentional and unavoidable. This part reminds us that unresolved accusations don't disappear with time. They wait quietly, especially when influence shields those involved. When power weakens, old shadows return with force. This clip injects emotional tension into the narrative and permanently alters the tone. From here on, nothing feels neutral. All right, guys, this is the moment the silence breaks publicly.
Thing to think about. And I sat down with Chris Todd to talk about this, and this is some of what he had to say.
Through our PIs right now, we do have some evidence that Kim Porter may have been poisoned and murdered. We need to listen to the people that are online, even these online sleuths, the bloggers. A lot of information comes out from this kind of community. And there's talk of toxins being in her system at first. It was called deferred at first, then it was changed. It's disturbing. It's dark. It's sad. This is an abused woman telling her story. When I first read the whole thing, I only had a couple pages at first. Now, as for the tapes, I've been told that I can have access to the tapes.
What are the tapes? First, start there. What tapes are you talking about?
The big ones.
You're talking about sex tapes.
Yeah, but with very famous people.
Okay, so talk to us about what you were told about the tapes.
That if I pass the test, they trust me, I will be the one to do it.
Who's they?
The sources and the people around the community of Kim and Diddy.
And I should tell you that after our interview, Amazon responded to all of this blowback by removing Chris Todd's book from its store. So with all of that in mind, let's revisit this, shall we? I want to bring in forensic death investigator from Jacksonville State University, Joseph Scott Morgan, host of the Body Bags podcast. I encourage everybody to check it out. Who doesn't want to hear the soothing voice of Joseph Scott Morgan for a prolonged period of time? And by the way, we're very lucky because Joseph told us that this is the first recording he is doing from his new studio. And gosh, Joseph, you look phenomenal.
Oh, well, thank you, Jesse. It's good to hear that from you. A person so stylish as yourself and with the world's best hair, of course.
Well, that's very kind
unlike
of you.
mine that is graying and not thinning, but it's gray nonetheless. But
it looks
thanks
good.
for having me on. It's always a pleasure. Well, thank you. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
So listen, I'm happy to have you on. We had you on months ago talking about this. There have been these kind of interesting developments since we last spoke. First, if you could just tell us, again, let's set the stage. Do you have any reason to believe that Kim Porter did not die of lobar pneumonia, and whether Porter could have been poisoned in a way to mimic those symptoms?
Wow, that's a very highly sophisticated premise. I think putting out that she could have been poisoned in some way, certainly something that would be undetectable. What I can tell you is that there was quite a bit of pathology with her autopsy. And, you know, you'd mentioned just a moment ago that she had died of lobar pneumonia. For folks that don't know, just a brief little primer here. Our lungs are comprised of lobes. Okay. So hence lobar pneumonia. The right lung has 3 lobes. The left lung has 2. All right. And the reason you have 2 is on the left is because the heart takes up the space. It kind of overlies the lung on that side. Now, her lungs, just so that
I'll be sure. Steps forward, not with vague hints, but with a direct and public call for an investigation. This is a turning point. When someone personally connected to Kim Porter challenges the official narrative, the story escalates immediately. His words introduce urgency, fear, and a deep mistrust of earlier conclusions. Mentions of added security and federal presence only heighten the tension. This no longer feels like internet speculation, it feels personal and serious. The clip matters because it shifts suspicion from online conversation to real-world demand. Once family members speak publicly, institutions can no longer pretend not to hear. Silence stops being an option. All right, guys, now we enter the details investigators never ignore.
Foreigners who don't speak English well, which again is not the case here. And they highlight how the only potentially comparable case in New York is where you had a retired police officer and a former judge who apparently hired women to have sex with a male fraternal group called the Jesters. But Combs' attorneys say, while there was no profit there, there's no profit here, there was sex trafficking of those prostitutes. That's what's different. Again, Combs was acquitted of sex trafficking in this case. And here's the main point, quote, moreover, the cases which involve defendants similarly situated to Mr. Combs have been released on bond pending sentencing. In reviewing the cases across the country where the primary or sole conviction was for a violation of 18 U.S.C. 2421, the defendants who were not charged with running a prostitution business have been released pending sentencing. And then Combs' attorneys make another argument for why Combs' conditions are exceptional. And it's about him being locked up at the MDC. They say that a district court judge in the Southern District in another case basically said how bad the MDC is. As Judge Furman noted, the state of affairs at MDC is unacceptable. In so noting, Judge Furman concluded that the conditions in the MDC qualify as exceptional reasons under the statute justifying, and this was the defendant in this case, Chavez's continuing release. Judge Furman found that the conditions at the MDC are, quote, dreadful in many respects, but three warrant particular emphasis. 1. Continued reports of inordinate periods of lockdown. 2. Claims that the facility provides inadequate and or substantially delayed necessary medical care, a particular risk in this case. And 3. General issues about the conditions at the facility. These conditions have not abated in Mr. Combs' detention at the facility. As the court is aware, during Mr. Combs' incarceration at the MDC, the facility was subject to an interagency sweep that was designed to achieve our shared goal of maintaining a safe environment for both our employees and the incarcerated individuals housed at MDC Brooklyn. They're actually quoting what the rationale was. In other words, there is a significant issue at the MDC related to the safety of employees and incarcerated individuals that require outside law enforcement action from multiple agencies to address. Importantly, MDC, as a jail, has a significant law enforcement presence within its walls 24 hours per day that are equipped with investigatory and often unregulated authority. Thus, the requirement of outside law enforcement agencies to ensure safety within the MDC is an admission that serious violence, mayhem, and chaos is occurring within the MDC that requires more than a Band-Aid raid, but rather surgery. Indeed, we are aware of ongoing threats of violence and actual violence in the facility such that Mr. Combs' safety is constantly at risk. And they go on to argue, though Mr. Combs has been a model inmate for his nearly year-long period of confinement, the violent conditions are still very much a concern for Mr. Combs and is an unnecessary confinement risk given the clear precedent of multiple similarly situated Mann Act convictions where defendants were released on conditions. Now, the government, by the way, would probably disagree with that statement of him being a model inmate. Remember when they accused Combs of trying to arrange three-way phone calls and buying the use of other inmates' phone privileges to try to make sure the government wasn't listening in, that he was having these private conversations, that he was allegedly trying to contact witnesses in the case, that he allegedly...
A former bodyguard brings up procedural red flags that are difficult to dismiss. Missing phones. Missing laptops. No proper examination of the scene. These aren't emotional claims, they're practical concerns rooted in how investigations normally work. That's what makes this segment hit harder. It doesn't rely on outrage, it relies on logic. In real investigations, what's missing often matters more than what's present. Absence creates gaps, and gaps create doubt. This clip quietly undermines confidence in how thoroughly the death was examined. It doesn't accuse anyone directly, it questions whether enough was actually done. And once that question exists, it doesn't go away. Alright, guys, this is where confusion turns into controversy.
Campaign to help his public image while he was locked up. So if we hear a government response, I'm sure they're going to say something about that. Then, the defense highlights he's not a risk of flight, he's not a danger to the community, which, by the way, I think are real key points here. But they seem to echo a lot of the same arguments that they have already stated to the court. And remember, they haven't been successful in the past. That he voluntarily came to New York last year to surrender himself to authorities, that he gave up his passport to his attorneys 6 months before his arrest, paid off his mortgage on his Miami home so it was free and clear for him to stay at while out on bond. He was just acquitted of the most serious charges that he was facing, which, by the way, carried decades, if not life in prison. That he's not a risk of flight. That's the basic argument. Now, when it comes to the danger argument, that is key. Why? Judge Subramanian had said after the verdict that the reason he was denying bail was because of Combs' violence, that his own attorneys admitted he was violent during the course of the trial. Well, here is what Combs' defense attorneys argue about that. Quote, the court noted that the defense admitted a history of domestic violence as to Miss Ventura and that he struck Jane twice in June 2024. However, we strenuously object that Mr. Combs poses a danger to the community, aside from a single instance on June 18, 2024, where Mr. Combs was provoked by Jane through her own acts of violence. There was no evidence of any acts of violence in the last 7 years. Indeed, the jury notably rejected the government's argument that the June 2024 incident constituted coercion when it acquitted Mr. Combs of the sex trafficking charge. Also, prior to his arrest in this case, Mr. Combs enrolled in a domestic violence program in which he participated until he was arrested and incarcerated in connection with this case. If released on conditions, Sean Combs will not be violent to anyone. As we said in court, this jury gave him his life back, and he will not squander his second chance at life, nor would he do anything to further jeopardize his 7 children not having a father and 4 of his children not having a parent at all. The court can fashion any set of conditions, and Mr. Combs will abide by any condition to make the court comfortable that Mr. Combs will not be violent toward any person. And that is when they propose the following bail package. That Combs will sign a $50 million bond secured by his home in Miami, that the bond will be co-signed by 3 financially responsible people, that Combs will reside in his home in Miami, that his travel will be limited to the Southern District of Florida, the Southern District of New York for attorney meetings, as well as airports that are necessary to travel between the two, that he will be placed under the express supervision of the U.S. Pretrial Services Agency, that he will report to that agency as directed, that his passport will be surrendered to pretrial services, that he shall not apply for any other passport, and they even highlight that the court can add other conditions too. Home detention, private security approved by the court, mental health treatment. He'll agree to it all. Now, let me tell you, we kind of previewed that this all would happen, this argument would happen, this new bail package would be presented when we spoke a few weeks ago to renowned bail bondsman, to the celebrities, by the way, to the stars, Ira Judelson, who apparently had been working with Combs' team behind the scenes on working to secure his release. Here's what he said about a new package after the verdict.
When Mark reached out to me afterwards, we started thinking about putting another bail package together.
And what is that bail package and by the way, is this a bail package that you think could be submitted again even after the judge just denied bail?
Well, the judge denied bail based on the statute, and the statute stated a certain amount of information that part of the Mann Act that, was not eligible for bail. There are certain circumstances.
A book appears claiming to be Kim Porter's voice from beyond the grave, and the backlash is immediate. Her children publicly deny its authenticity, making it clear she never wrote or approved it. Legal teams respond swiftly. Amazon removes the book entirely. This segment exposes how tragedy can attract exploitation and opportunism. It also shows how fiercely Porter's family protects her legacy. Even though the book disappears, the chaos it caused doesn't. Trust is shaken further. This moment proves how volatile and sensitive the story has become. Every new claim now carries consequences. Nothing here feels accidental or harmless anymore. All right, guys, now emotion steps aside and science takes over.
Of 2 black TV networks in the United States. So in all, the defense is hoping the judge sentences him to a 14-month sentence, meaning if the judge sides with him, it's likely he could be out of jail before the holidays. As of this recording, though, prosecutors haven't submitted their recommendations for his sentencing, but they've previously said that he has an extreme history of violence and that the attempts to minimize his conduct show he's still very dangerous. So that was a lot, right? A lot of legalese, a lot of pages to go through. So let's break it down further with none other than criminal defense attorney Safa Robinson-Ferrer. Safa, always great to see you, and thanks so much for joining me. Let's take a little step back. It's almost sentencing time for Diddy. He needs support. The defense sent a bunch of letters, some including from Young Miami, Dallas Austin, Stevie J, the mothers of his daughters Love and Chance, his mom, his sister, all of his kids, minus the youngest one. But what did you make of the letters of support?
Not surprised to see letters of support here. That's actually pretty typical as sentencing is about to commence, or shortly, at least a week or two before the sentencing commences. And a lot of times defendants and clients will submit letters that are on behalf of family members and loved ones, giving a clearer picture to the judge as to who this person is generally, or who this person is and what they mean to their family and their loved ones. And that's a part of what we call a mitigation or sentencing memorandum that goes to the court in order to get a lesser sentence, or to give the judge an idea of, this is a good guy, mistakes happen or bad things happen, but he's been reformed, rehabilitated, and we as his family need him back.
And are you surprised more famous faces didn't come front and center to possibly also voice their support in favor of Diddy? I was surprised to only kind of see really the 3 standout names being Dallas Austin, Young Miami, and Stevie J, at least to me. But are you surprised other famous faces didn't also voice their support through letters, like maybe Ye, who attended the court that one day?
I'm actually not too surprised that we haven't heard more from some of the other celebrities, because I think that anybody with a pretty sound PR team is going to tell them to stay far away from this and to not give any opinions of it. I am kind of surprised that we haven't heard anything from Ye, but that's his prerogative. Of course, he has shown his support throughout the trial, and anybody who is willing and wants to support Mr. Combs through the sentencing phase and provide a memorandum or a letter, then they're able to do that. But I think, considering what the defense has provided to the court, there have been significant amounts of letters and things of that nature that the judge can go off of to get another side of Mr. Combs, maybe different from what the judge has heard at trial.
Do you think any of the letters kind of swayed maybe even your opinion in terms of what we heard at trial versus kind of the aftermath, even, before the trial began, that made you change your opinion in any type of way? I kind of felt like everything just felt kind of repetitive a little bit.
I think the most captivating letter that I got a chance to view was his mother's. And she makes a very good point. She's an 85-year-old woman, or in her mid-80s. She doesn't know how much time she has left on this earth. And so one of the things that I think is important and what really spoke to me and would probably speak to the judge is wanting the ability to spend the end of her life with her, granting them the ability to reconcile their relationship outside of him being incarcerated, also granting the ability for the family to essentially be reunited and to satisfy this mother's wishes of having her son reunited with his children, her grandchildren, so that they can heal and move forward.
A forensic expert enters the discussion, slowing everything down with facts and medical clarity. He explains what lobar pneumonia actually is, how it develops, and how it affects the body. The poisoning theory is addressed carefully, without drama or exaggeration. This part is powerful because it respects complexity instead of feeding speculation. It shows how difficult it would be to disguise foul play medically, especially in a full autopsy. Instead of amplifying rumors, this segment educates the audience. It reminds viewers that suspicion must survive expert scrutiny. This clip doesn't close the case, it sharpens the questions and defines their limits. All right, guys, this is where everything converges and consequences become real. Courtroom arguments, bail requests, letters of support, and claims of personal reform all collide in one place. The image of absolute control begins to fracture under legal pressure. Loyalty thins. Support becomes conditional. Silence breaks where it once held firm. This final stretch isn't just about one man or one case, it's about what happens when power loses immunity. The emotional weight is heavy and unavoidable. Whether final answers ever come or not, the narrative has already shifted permanently. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next video.